Alhamdulillah, as-salatu was-salam ala Rasulullah. I hope to be able to prove to any rational person, any right-thinking human being, that not only that there is a God who has created all of us and sustains the universe in which we exist, but also that God has sent to human beings guidance through which and by which we can live our lives and earn His pleasure in this life and the next. Now, for many people, the whole idea that you could prove a religion to be true is a strange idea. For many people, religion, they imagine, is supposed to be something mysterious, incomprehensible. In fact, the whole idea of faith in the minds of some people is that faith is supposed to be something that you believe without any proof. But Muslims don't hold that point of view. Rather, for us, faith is something that is established upon evidence, upon understanding, with insight. In the same way, for example, that a scientist has a theory, and that theory is supposed to be supported by evidence through observation of reality. So by observing reality, by observing the world, by observing various phenomena, the scientist comes to a conclusion based upon that observation. Now, before we start our conversation, I have to lay down a few fundamental points. Some issues that we all have to agree on. If we don't agree on these issues, you can turn off the TV now, because there's not going to be any point in this discussion if we don't agree on a few basic fundamentals. So the first basic fundamental that we have to agree on is this: that the world in which we live and this universe in which we live is real. It is real. It's really there. It's not like in the film The Matrix, is that everybody in their mind, it's a computer generated image in their mind, and maybe reality is not reality anymore. I mean, okay, it's possible that that could be true, but what does it benefit us thinking like that? No, we have to accept that the world in which we live is real. I am real, you are real, the sun is real, the trees are real, the air is real, and this is a real world. And the way we understand our world and the way we understand ourselves is by observation and by using our minds. This is the way that we understand reality. This is the way that we make sense of our everyday lives. We use our minds, we think, we reason, and all human beings have something in common. There is something in common that makes us all human beings. There are certain physical features we have, but there are also certain mental features and ways of perceiving reality that we share. That's common to our humanity. So one of these things is what we call common sense. We can call it common sense, or the ability to reason. And there are certain things that we all agree upon. And no two human beings would differ, except that if that person differed about this, we'd say, that guy's crazy, that guy's mad. He doesn't, his brain isn't working properly. So one of the things we all, for example, let's take an example. One of the things that we all agree about is this: that the part of something is less than the whole of a thing. Part of something is less than the whole of the thing. We all agree with that? I'm sure we all agree with that. That's something every single human being everywhere is not going to argue about it. Okay. Another thing that all human beings can agree about, to give another example of something that we can all agree about, is that we don't find something coming from nothing. We don't find that. Human beings understand that where we see things working according to laws, working according to patterns, we see things constructed, we know that thing has come from somewhere. How did this universe come into existence? Where did we come from? What is the origin of all of this universe? If we can think about this and we can understand this and we can reason this, then we will find, step by step, we will come to an amazing inevitable conclusion. So let's look at our universe. Let's look at the world in which we live. Let's look at ourselves. What we find when we observe the universe, when we observe ourselves, and we observe the world around us, we find that things are not only working according to laws and they're working according to systems and patterns, but these laws and these systems and patterns are amazing in their intricacy and their detail. And there are so many examples of this that are evident. Imagine instead of the earth rotating on its axis once every 24 hours, imagine instead that the earth was rotating very, very slowly. And in fact, a day was not a day, but it was what is now equivalent of 30 or 40 years. So what would you find? You would find that one part of the earth's surface would be almost constantly exposed to the sun. The other part of the earth's surface would be in darkness. The consequence of that would be one side of the earth would be superheated, the other would be supercooled. It would not be possible for life to exist. If there was not an ozone layer protecting us from the harmful effects of the sun's radiation, life on the earth would not exist. Could this perfect combination of gases, of movement, of various aspects, and I've just mentioned a few, be a product of some random event, of chance and coincidence? Let us, in order to understand this, go back and use what we decided already we're going to use. Let's use our process of reason. Let's use our common human experience. Is there anything in our human experience that tells us that you get such order, such fine and precise order from some random event? No. Our universal human experience tells us that where we see something working according to orders, working according to patterns, someone or something has ordered it. Someone or something made it work according to those laws and work according to those patterns. That's why, for example, an archaeologist could go and dig in the desert and find a simple piece of pottery, just a simple piece of pottery. Yet this archaeologist will be able to tell us so many things about the civilization that made that piece of pottery without ever seeing them. He didn't see them make the pottery, he didn't see their houses, he didn't see their buildings, but this man digs in the dirt, he finds this piece of pottery, and he will tell us so many things about this civilization, their state of technology, their transportation system, their level of intellectual capacity. Because he can examine the pottery, he can tell us at what temperature the ovens must have been at in order to bake the clay, to get it at this certain texture. And therefore from that he can deduce so many things. So for this archaeologist, the existence of this piece of pottery is conclusive proof of the existence of the people and the intelligence and the civilization that made it. If I was to say, for example, my mobile phone here, what is this mobile phone made of? Essentially, what is it made of? Two things: silicon, which is sand, and plastic, which is oil. So here we have silicon and plastic, and a bit of leather as the cover of it. So two things, silicon and plastic. Now, in what place in the world is there lots of sand and lots of oil? Well, for example, Saudi Arabia. There's lots of sand and lots of oil in Saudi Arabia. What if I told you I was walking along one day in the desert in Saudi Arabia, and here I found this mobile phone, a product of complete chance and coincidence, random events. The oil spewed, the sun shined, the sun shone, lightning struck, and after millions and millions of years of all these geological changes and the heat and the cold and the pressure and the wind blowing, this mobile phone came into existence through mere random processes. And say this is ridiculous. Yet the human mind, the human brain, is infinitely more complex than a mobile phone, than even the world's fastest supercomputers. The human brain is infinitely more complex and has a huge capacity for computing power beyond what any human being has been able to make so far in terms of computers. It's an amazingly sophisticated machine. And in fact, with all the organs of our body. Can we really believe? Is there anything in the totality of human experience that leads us to believe that these things are a product of some random event? No. Human experience tells us, reason tells us that when we find something ordered, it is a product of an intelligence that has ordered it and made it work according to these laws and these patterns. So we look at our universe, we look at ourselves, we look at our world, and we ask 3 simple questions. Did it come from nothing? That's the first question. Did it come from nothing? Did this universe come from nothing? Did we come from nothing? Do we find anything coming from nothing? No. There is nothing in our human experience to lead us to believe that something, let alone something so complex, could have come from nothing. So that's not a possibility.
Learn Arabic.
As everyone knows, today Arabic is considered as very important, very significant language. How can we produce the sound, the state of voicing, place of articulation, and manner of articulation? So in Arabic, the words which are written are pronounced.
We will learn how to write and pronounce Arabic letters correctly in depth. Explanation via board and presentation with many other important factors.
And we have today more than 300 million people speak Arabic language. Not only in the Middle East, but you can find a lot of people speak Arabic language in Asia, Europe, North America, and in South America.
What are you waiting for? Grab your notebook and pencil and stay tuned for Learn Arabic at Huda TV.
The second possibility, did it create itself? Did this universe create itself? Did we create ourselves? No. If we did not exist in the first place, how could we have brought, or how could this universe brought itself into existence? If it wasn't there, how could it make itself there? And we don't attribute to the universe and to the things in the universe the ability to create. What is the universe made of? The universe is made of stars and galaxies. Lots of stars and lots of galaxies. Do the stars and galaxies have the ability to create? Do we attribute to them the ability to order things? No. In fact, they themselves are in need of being ordered, and they themselves are in need of a creator. And if something is not able to create or organize on its own, then a large collection of them cannot also make something like that happen. It's that simple. It doesn't matter how many you bring, they still lack that ability to do something. So the same with the universe. The universe could not have created itself. It couldn't have ordered itself, because that's not an attribute of the universe. Rather, it is in need of something to create it. Are we the creators of it? Human beings? No, because we ourselves need a creator. So what is the conclusion? The conclusion of the rational mind is this: that this universe needs a creator. It needs an organizer. We need something. We need some explanation of how this universe came to be and how we came to be the way we are. And therefore it makes sense that there is something outside of this universe, different from it, separate from it, that has organized and created and that sustains this universe in which we live. So the creator. The creator is different and distinct from the creation. The creation is needy, the creation is temporary, the creation is in need of a sustainer. Whereas the nature of the creator must be different. If the nature of the creator is not different, in other words, if the creator is of the same nature as the creation, then that creator would need a creator. And if that creator was not different, then that creator would need a creator. And what you would have is creator creating creators ad infinitum. So this question, well, okay, I recognize the logic and I recognize the reason behind the existence of a creator, but then who created the creator? It's not a valid question, because the nature of the creator is different. The nature of the Creator is eternal. The nature of the Creator is infinite. The Creator is without beginning and without end. The Creator is self-sufficient, ever-living. So an ever-living, self-sufficient, eternal being does not need a Creator because that being is ever-living and self-sufficient. Let's think about this in another way. Why the existence of such a being is logically and rationally necessary. Let's give an example. If I am here, or you imagine yourselves at home, and you have a big table or you have some big cupboard and you want to lift it and you want to move it from one place to the other. You're not able to do that on your own. You're not able to do that on your own. So what you want to do is you want to enlist the help of someone. So you go to your next door neighbor and you say, listen, I want to move this cupboard. Can you give me a hand? And your neighbor says, listen, I'll give you a hand, but only if my friend gives me a hand. So that other person says, yeah, I will give you a hand, but only if someone else gives me a hand. And imagine everybody makes that condition. Everybody says, I will only help if somebody else helps. If everybody along the line makes that condition, will your cupboard ever be lifted? Will your furniture ever be moved? No, because everyone is saying, I will not help unless someone else helps. So if you have a creator, creating a creator, you get the situation where nothing ever gets created. Just as your cupboard never gets moved, nothing ever gets created. But the creation is here. I'm sitting here, you're sitting there, look out of the window, you'll see the sun, you'll see the moon, you'll see the stars, you'll see the trees. The creation is here. That means that something has been created. So you can't have creators creating creators ad infinitum. There must be somewhere where it stops. And it has to stop at a being who is distinct and separate and different in his nature from that which he created. Now, it is hard to imagine. Reason cannot really accept that there could be two eternal, infinite, self-sufficient beings, let alone 3, 4, or 5. So the nature of this creation indicates to us that if there was more than one creator, there would not be a creation, there would be chaos. But rather the underlying unity and the intricacy and detail that we find existing in this universe indicates to us that there must be one united, wise, powerful and intelligent force behind all of this. So here's our discussion. Here's our reasoning. Here's our step-by-step, stage-by-stage process of reasoning that we have gone through. And what have we reached at the end of it? What we have reached at the end of all of this is a simple conclusion. This universe has a creator. This creator is different from the universe. The creator is wise. The creator is powerful. And there is only one such creator. Out of all the religions in this world, of all the philosophies and the religions and the ideologies in this world, which one teaches us to believe in one creator who is eternal, who is self-sufficient, who is infinite, wise and powerful, and who is different and distinct from the creation? You will find that although many religions and philosophies have some aspect of this idea, nearly all of them compromise it in one way or another. For example, let us take broadly the Hindu concept of God. The Hindu concept of God, for example, and I use this in a very generalized sense because I do realize that many different people within Hinduism have many different beliefs. But generally, the Hindu concept of God is that the creation is God. God is everywhere and in everything. So this is the idea, what we call it pantheism, that everything is God and God is everywhere and in everything. But this contradicts reason. This contradicts our whole process that we have used it. If you think back upon what I said, how can the creation be the same as God? And if the creation is the same as God, then what created it? The whole rational basis that we used in order to understand that God exists falls on its face. So the idea that God and the creation is one and the same is not acceptable. It's not rational. It can't be understood by reason. There's no basis for such a concept and for such a belief. And then you find other religions, for example, Christianity. By and large, most Christians believe that Jesus was God. But traditional Christian theology tells us also that Jesus was the manifestation of God. In fact, many religions claim that God manifested himself as a human being or some type of creature. Again, this compromises that basic belief. How can something be creator and created at the same time? How can something be both eternal and infinite and finite and temporary? How can something be self-sufficient and needy at the same time? It's like saying the square became a circle but was still a square. How can a square become a circle and still stay a square? It doesn't make any sense. It's irrational, it's illogical. It's enough reason to reject any religion that tells us God became a man or God became some type of creature, because it's irrational. It doesn't make any sense. And it's something you can never ever prove. You can believe it if you want to, but you can never prove it, because it's a commonsensical, rational impossibility. And whatever is a rational impossibility can never be proven. It's that simple. So what religion is there in the world? What religion tells us to believe in one God that is wise, self-sufficient, powerful, who has created this universe and sustains it? Well, you're reduced to very few religions. Perhaps the only two religions that teach such a clear concept of the one God is Judaism and Islam. Well, if you want to become a Jew, by and large, Orthodox Jews will tell you tough. Because if you want to become a Jew, you have to be born a Jew. Your mother has to be a Jewish woman for you to be a Jew. So what universal religion? What religion that is universal, that is there for every person, that invites every person to believe in this rational, simple, clear, commonsensical belief is left? Look to the Quran. Open the Quran, read the Quran, read about Islam, and see for yourself the concept of God that the Quran teaches. There is a chapter of the Quran called Surah Al-Ikhlas, the chapter of this purity of faith. It describes this concept of God so beautifully. It says, Kul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Say He is Allah the One. Allahu samad. That means Allah is the one which every single thing needs, but Allah is in need of nothing. So He is self-sufficient, in need of nothing, but everything needs Him. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. And He does not give birth. He is not the begetter. Rather, He is the creator. Wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. And there is nothing that can be likened unto Him. God is not like anything we can imagine. Whatever picture you can put into your mind, God is not like that. God is unique. God is different from this creation. And this is the beautiful, clear, rational teaching of Islam about God. And in fact, I would say, for any right-thinking, rational human being who uses their process of reasoning, that is reason enough and that is proof enough to show that Islam and the Quran is from the Creator of the heavens and the earth.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose whom He wills subhanahu wa ta'ala for His mercy, for His messengership, for the revelation to be revealed. This is not for the human beings to make that decision. If a person would turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely, truthfully, asking for forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised to forgive. We have as Muslims a duty, and that is to recite the book of Allah, to ponder over the verses, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to act according to the Quran. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encompasses everything, but who would this mercy will be for? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent to all mankind. So the ummah or the people of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam are all mankind since the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam till the day of judgment. Why waste our life without getting to know every verse in the Quran, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us?
Alhamdulillah, as-salatu was-salam ala Rasulullah. Common sense and reason leads us and must inevitably lead us to believe that this universe has a creator, that there is one creator who is wise, powerful and self-sufficient, that is different from the universe and the creation in which we live. And then we came to understand that when we looked at the world religions, all of them, in one manner or another, compromise this basic, commonsensical, reasonable belief, except Islam. Islam is the religion that teaches us this beautiful, pure monotheism that makes so much sense, that is so reasonable, and that is so close to the natural, instinctive understanding of the human being. But someone may have after this a question. Well, that's fine. That's a very nice belief. It makes a lot of sense. But anybody could come up with such a belief. In fact, maybe a person could argue that there are philosophers in the past who came up with a concept of God very, very close to that. Does that mean that what they said and what they did and what they followed was revelation and guidance from God? No, of course not. Because when it comes to the issue of revelation and guidance from God, we have to ask some more questions. Of course, the first one is, do we need revelation and guidance from God? Well, I think again, when we apply our common sense, when we apply our reasoning faculties, then we will say yes. In fact, the human being is desperately in need of the wisdom and the guidance from the Supreme Being, from the wise creator of the heavens and the earth. In fact, we find that God has provided for us, Allah has provided for us, the Creator has provided for us in every single aspect of our life. We feel thirst, and we have been provided with the means to satisfy our thirst. We feel hunger, and we've been given the means to satisfy our hunger. We feel love and the need for companionship, and the means to satisfy that love has been given to us. So we find in all our material needs, even in our emotional needs, the provision and the means to satisfy those needs is there. But the human being has another need, a need that is perhaps even greater than the physical and emotional needs. And we have the need to know what is the purpose of our life, why are we here, what is the reason for our existence. And not only that, to know the purpose, but once we know the purpose, to know how do we fulfill that purpose. So there is something very precious, and that's to know the meaning of life. And there's something more precious, that once you know the meaning of life, you know how to live that life. So the human being has a great need for that. And it would not be irrational or illogical to expect that when we look and we see the condition of the human being, that the one who has created this universe and provided for us in all aspects must have also provided for us in this most needy of all aspects, this desperate need for us to know what is the purpose of our life, what is the reason for our existence, and how to fulfill that created purpose. Also, we would say that any human being who looks at this universe and observes the bounty, that its creator has provided us with would also wish to express their gratitude and their love and their appreciation for such a beneficent and merciful and bountiful creator. But then the question is there, how do we do that? How do we express our gratitude in a way that is pleasing to God? What are the things that this creator wants us to do? What is the manner in which this creator wishes us to express our gratitude? This is a very another important question. Some people feel content that, well, I'll just do anything I feel like, or I can just guess. But no rational person and no thinking person would really be satisfied with that. Because again, when we go back to our premise and we think about ourselves and our everyday life and our common human experience, common human experience tells us that that is not a satisfactory manner or a satisfactory way in dealing with things at all. If you want to give your friend a present to show your appreciation, you won't just give your friend anything that you feel like and that makes you happy. You're going to make an effort to find out what your friend wants, what your friend likes. What sort of gift would they like to receive? Not what you want to give. This is just common sense. So even more then, when we want to thank the creator of the universe and express our awe and reverence and gratitude to God, we can't just do whatever we feel like, whatever happens to come to our mind, or whatever traditional culture we just happen to follow. No. Rather, we need some guidance from God. The conclusion of all of that is, common sense tells us that we are in desperate need of some type of concrete guidance from our Creator. Some revelation, some guidance, some means that we could be sure and that we could understand and that we could know that this is the way God wants us to live our lives. This is the purpose for which God created us. This is how we could thank Him and express our gratitude to Him. Lots of people claim in one way or another to be bringing that guidance from God. Lots of people are claiming, I'm getting a message from God. I'm getting a revelation from God. God wants you to do this. God doesn't want you to do that. There's so many religions and so many people and so many sects and groups, and all of them are making essentially the same claim that they have some sort of divine guidance, some sort of guidance for you in which you're going to live your life in a way that is pleasing to God. But we have to use some sort of method to sort out, to understand. So again, let us use our reasoning process. Let us use our minds to come to some sort of conclusion. It's very interesting, in fact, that the Quran, by the way, is the book of the Muslims. But it's not only the holy book of the Muslims. The Quran is what Muslims believe to be the actual words of God. The words of God, the speech of God that was revealed to God's final messenger Muhammad, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, 1,400 years ago. The Quran actually gives a type of criterion, a type of means that the human being could use in order to distinguish something that is revelation and something that is from God against something that is a human invention. So the Quran gives forward a simple suggestion or a simple statement. If this book, the Quran, was from anyone else other than God, you would find within it many discrepancies, many contradictions. That's quite a simple, quite a rational, and quite a sensible proposition. If God is all-knowing, and if God is all-wise, and God is all-seeing, and God is all-hearing, certainly from our previous thinking and previous process, and looking at this universe and looking at this creation, we can definitely understand that the one who created this universe is very wise and very powerful. This creator is able to string together the molecules and atoms to form the chain of the DNA. The DNA that is the blueprint that makes creatures what they are. Could we imagine that such a creator who is able to bring into existence such a complicated system is not able to reveal a revelation that is consistent with itself without contradictions? No, surely such a wise and powerful being is more than able to reveal to human beings a book, a revelation that is free from contradictions, that is free from discrepancies. So this is a type of challenge that the Quran lays down that we could apply not only to the Quran itself, but to any scripture or any book or any person who comes along claiming revelation and claiming guidance from God. How could a book 1,400 years old have information that was not known at that time at all by anybody, and that has only been discovered recently? This is the sort of thing we would expect from a revelation that is from God. We would not expect a revelation from God to tell us that the earth is resting on an elephant which is standing on a tortoise which is swimming in the sea. This is the type of statement we would not expect to find in a book that's from God. This is a type of fairy tale, a type of fantasy story, a type of bedtime invention that some mother invented to tell their children. It's not something we could accept to be a revelation from God. For example, to take another example, the Bible. The Bible is a book that the Muslims believe contains some things that are from God. But we also believe that this is a book that has become corrupted and distorted throughout time. Firstly, the Bible does not exist in the original language of the people to whom it was revealed. This is the first stage of corruption. Secondly, things have been taken out and other things have been put in. So one of the very interesting things about the Bible is that when you read the very beginning of the Bible, it starts by telling us that God created the light and He called it day, and He created the darkness and He called it night, and the first day came and the first night came. Yet the Bible tells us that God did not create the sun until the fourth day. That begs a question to the rational, inquiring mind. How do you get night and day without a sun?
Allah is beautiful and He loves beauty. So is it logical to say all plastic surgeries are lawful in Islam to bring or to regain beauty? It is very misleading questions. Need a very accurate and firm answers. Let us set up the rules and principles to cover all plastic surgeries in Islamic law. How Islam does legalize niqab or veil factor in our modern life? Is it fair to suggest that it is more cultural than it is Islamic? I would rather to answer these questions by just suggesting very shocking fact about niqab. Are you ready for that? How Islam does legalize polygamy when Islam always says that respect natural instinct and natural feelings, and knowing that not a single woman does accept anyone to share her in her kingdom. All what you have said is true. But is there any difference between your natural instinct and your natural desires? Or maybe between your interest or what you wish to have? Or maybe your interest and other interest? Is it true that anything came after the Prophet ﷺ regarding this deen to be considered as a bid'ah, innovation? It's neither this nor that. It seems very well complicated and confusing to many Muslims, especially when it comes to the saying of the Prophet ﷺ, وَكُلَّ مُحْدَثَةٍ بِدْعَةٍ, and Sayyidina Umar saying, نِعْمَةُ الْبِدْعَةُ هَذِهِ.
Now someone could say, well, God can do anything. That's not the point. We agree, God can do anything. But that's not the issue. The issue is this: does this scripture reflect reality? The one who wrote this, does this seem to be like the one who wrote this knew the processes that exist in this universe? That the night and day is caused by the alternation and the rotation of the earth on its axis? No. The one who wrote the Bible clearly did not know that this was the process through which the night and day occurred. They obviously imagined that there was some entity of light and some entity of darkness, and that light and darkness were caused by the existence of these entities. In fact, this was exactly the ancient Babylonian myth. So what we find is the Bible actually, rather than reflecting scientific fact, actually reflects ancient Babylonian mythology. And it would seem that the Bible, or not that there was an original Bible, that the true revelation of God was corrupted and changed in order to make it conform with these mythologies and these ideas that existed at the time. So we therefore cannot say that such a book is from God. Rather, because on the basis of what? On the rational basis that this actually contradicts reality. These statements contradict reality. And that is a discrepancy. And we would not imagine that a book that is from God to contain such contradictions and to contain such discrepancies. But when we examine the Quran, when we look at the Quran, we find not only is the Quran consistent with itself and consistent with external realities, in fact the Quran is making statements that, as I mentioned before, scientists have only began to discover recently. Statements about astronomy, statements about geology, statements about biology, statements on oceanography. In fact, so many fields of scientific discovery, the Quran is mentioning things that are amazing. Some of the top world scientists, how could this information be in a book 1,400 years old? And some of them have concluded quite rationally, quite sensibly, that it must be a revelation from the Creator of the heavens and the earth. So this is one manner in which we could decide and we could see whether a book is revelation or not. So first of all, the Quran calls us to this beautiful, pure, monotheistic belief, this rational belief that there is one God who has created everything and that God is different and distinct from the creation. Secondly, the Quran is consistent with itself. Now there is one more thing I want to look at. And the other aspect I want to look at is the messenger, the person to whom the revelation was given. Now there are many different ways we could imagine. There are many different ways we could imagine that God might let us know about Himself, how to thank Him, how to worship Him, how we should live our lives. There are many different ways. For example, this is just thinking and guessing and thinking, well, how could we, maybe, for example, God might leave a book just lying around somewhere or inscribed in a rock or something like that. So this is one idea, that there is a book just lying around waiting there to be discovered that contains the information that we need. This is one possibility. The second possibility is that God would let every single individual human being know. Every human being and every individual human being would be inspired with that knowledge and with that message and with that revelation from God. This is another possibility. Or the other possibility is that God would send a messenger. God would give this knowledge and this revelation to a specific and special human being. Now, Islam teaches that this is the way, the last way, that this is the manner in which God has chosen to let us know, human beings, let us know about Himself, about how we should be grateful to Him, about how we should worship Him and thank Him, and how we should live our lives in a way that is pleasing to Him. This is the manner, through prophets. So Islam accepts and believes in the concept of prophethood, that there are special, chosen human beings. And again, when we think about it, when we look at the nature of the human being, and when we look at this option as compared to other options, we find without doubt that this is the most rational, this is the most sensible, and this is the best means of conveying that message to the human beings, because there are really more weaknesses and more deficiencies in the other methods. For example, one of the deficiencies in the idea that God could have left some book lying around, or God could have inscribed this message somewhere, and we just discover it and we have to go and discover it. One of the deficiencies in it is there is no practical example of another human being living and acting out that revelation. This is a problem, because human beings might say, well, that's all well and good, and here are all these rules, and here are all these things that we have to follow, and this is how we should live our life. But where's a practical example? Where can I see someone doing that? This is something that human beings, from our common experience, we really need that. We have a great need of a practical example for us, either to see directly in front of us or that we could read about historically, but we need some physical, practical example to see a human being doing those things. That's why the idea of some divine being, some God, some demigod, some angel, some supernatural being coming down, it's very deficient, because it always leaves the argument open. But hey, that's not a person, that's an angel. That's not a human being, that's a God. How can we be like a God? How can we be like an angel? It's a perfectly fair argument. But if God sends a messenger who is a human being, who eats food like we eat food, who marries like we marry, who has the same desires that we have, the same needs that we have, has the same weaknesses that the human being has, yet this person is able to overcome those weaknesses and manifest those excellent qualities and display them for us in a manner that is practical and real, then we can say, yes, there is a living example of another human being who can live their life in accordance to the will of God. And we can imitate that and we can emulate that. That is why God chose to reveal His message to human beings, although albeit very special human beings. And those very special human beings were the prophets, the messengers. Islam teaches us that there were many messengers sent to many nations, to many people. Some of those messengers you may be familiar with: Abraham, Moses, Jacob, Jesus. They are all mentioned in the Quran as messengers of God. They were all prophets of God. They were not gods or sons of God. They were human beings who were given revelation from God. We believe that the last of all of those messengers was Muhammad. May Allah's peace, may God's peace and blessings be upon him. And that he is the guide for all of humanity. And he is the final messenger. And he is the messenger for our time. And that is another means through which we could understand that Islam is the truth. When we look at the life of Prophet Muhammad, when we look at the life and the teaching and the action and the actions of this man, really a person must be convinced that this man is really truly what he claimed to be, a messenger of God. Because his example, the way that he lived his life, the manner in which he behaved, really manifest those qualities of goodness, of honesty, of truthfulness, of trustworthiness, of sincerity, of compassion, yet at the same time of firmness and uncompromising dedication to the message that God desires him to deliver. If we look at the life of Prophet Muhammad, we find all of those qualities are manifest in this man. In fact, really to study the life of Prophet Muhammad is to study one of those convincing proofs and those rational means through which and by which the human being can come to know that indeed Islam is the revelation from the Creator of the heavens and the earth for the guidance and for the benefit of all of the human beings, so that we could live in true peace with ourselves, with our families, with our society, and with the world at large. just as all of the creatures in this universe, indeed even the inanimate objects, the sun, the moon, the stars, are all obeying the laws of God. If we wish to be in harmony, in symbiosis with this universe, then we also need to choose as human beings to submit to and obey the laws of God. But we human beings have a choice. In some regards, not in the manner of breathing and eating, we are like the creatures. We have to obey the laws of God. But there are other things, emotionally, intellectually, in our actions of worship, that we can choose to obey God or to disobey God. And if we wish to be in a true state of peace and harmony with the creation, then we must also do what all of the creation is doing and submit ourselves entirely and completely to the laws and the commands and the will of our Creator, and live our lives in a manner that is displaying gratitude and thankfulness to our bountiful Lord, who is Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. May God's peace and blessings be upon all of you.
La